Well, hello everybody. Here we are. It's been about 2 weeks, maybe 3. I think it's more like 2.5 weeks since the last update, and that was one where I was kind of bemoaning, woe is me. But things are actually doing really well. This morning, we had a dead goldfish in here, and he was one that, I'm not kidding you, this isn't a fish story. It was that big, huge. And I guess I put him in the composter, and I'm not going to show him to you, but it seemed to me like it had a bloated belly or something, so I don't know what it was, but the rest of the fish are doing just fine, so who knows? But I guess fish do die. I've had this pond in here for 10 years now, maybe, and no, not quite 10 years, maybe about, well, anyway, nearly 10 years, and some of those fish are the original ones, and they are that big. So anyway, dead fish, but that's just how it is. Now you're going to see some dramatic changes in the greenhouse from last time, and it's only been, like I say, maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and things are really growing well. Now, one of the things you can attribute that to is there's a lot more sunshine, because there's a lot more daylight time in the day, so that's probably one of the biggest reasons. And well, let me go around and show you first, to show you some of these things that have changed, and I think we're going to do really well this year. Now, the first thing I want to show you is these grapes. Look at that. They're getting big. They're huge, and there's lots of them. Now, there's two sides to this trellis, so I'm going to show you one side right now. But see, up there, it's really been a challenge to keep the vines from climbing up into the ceiling, into the rafters, because, boy, they just grow like crazy. There's another big cluster of grapes, and they've got a little bit of time left before they're ready to be picked. And I've got to get a dehydrator, because when the time comes, I'm going to need it, because I want to turn these all into raisins. Now let's see what we've got over here. Oh, now these are the eggplants that I planted a while ago. Now they're not really big. They're growing very slowly, but they are growing. Now I guess that's good news. Now I wanted to talk about my celery a little bit. Now this stuff grows wild, and I never planted any of these. But they're new this year, so they're new plants, so they're growing quite well and haven't gone to seed. But look how much they've grown. Now these are ready to be taken into the house and cut and harvested as we need them, and they're going to be good for the whole year, all the way till the winter time. They'll last that long. That's just the way celery is. Now this plant here is not planted. It's some kind of a Brassica plant. And I don't know what it is, but take a note of how big this is. Now, first of all, take a note of how much this has grown over the last 3 weeks. And second, if you compare it over here to how these brassicas are grown over here in the floating raft environment, and you can see some of these are quite large and they're doing quite well, but some of them, on this end, are not doing so well. But if you look over here, I kind of wonder if this one that was kind of planted all by itself is doing better than all of them. It makes me wonder if these brassicas do better in soil or whether they do better in the aquaponic environment. Now here what we're looking at is the runners that have been coming out of these strawberry plants. Now it's hot right now in the middle of the summer, so we don't have any strawberries, but I think these are fall and spring type strawberries, so we should have strawberries then. In the meantime, I'm going to try to let them really spread out. Now take a look at this celery. It's really growing. It's just in the front, but I think if you see from the last video that it was a lot smaller than that. This is ready to harvest. Now what I'm going to do back here in this little empty spot is I've planted some peppers, and we're going to, hopefully they're going to come up. Now let's get over to the beans and have a look at this. If you remember from the last video, they were just barely coming up, and look at them now. They're really tall, doing really well. Now over here I had some problems with the with this particular grow bed, and I think it's because this tray has got a lot of clay soil on the bottom of it. And you know, I did put some good soil on the top, but I think that clay soil is kind of sealing everything up. Now I did put some drain holes in it, but it still collects water and holds it. So what I've done is I've taken the sprinklers up here and I've shut these off, and hopefully that'll let that dry out a little bit, because this is all automatic and all these sprinklers come on at the same time. So we're going to let this dry out a little bit, and hopefully it'll do a lot better. Now I have planted some more beans in here. They're down there under the surface a little bit, and I think those are going to be coming up if I can just get that to dry. Now see, there's one that's a little bit soggy, and hopefully it'll still come up. We'll let you know next time. But that's one thing about beans. They don't germinate in mud. They just don't like that. And you can see over here, I planted some more beans in this to take the place of those peas that weren't doing too well. And you see that's coming up, and that one's coming up. And here's one that didn't come up, and that's just because it got kind of soaked and just rotted away. And that's what happens if they're too wet. And sometimes, you know, they do come up, like you see some of these. But anyway, I've got to replant some of these, and I've got some beans over there in that other grow bed, so I think they'll do all right. The one message that that I've learned from this, the one lesson that I've learned from this is beans like to be moist but not wet. So when you plant beans, you know, don't soak them. Now let's go over here, and surprise, surprise, remember last time I told you my carrots were going to be coming up because I planted some seeds and there weren't any carrots up there. But look at this, I've got a little miniature forest now, and they're way too densely planted, but I'm still going to let them kind of grow up a little bit, and I guess what we'll do is we'll start pulling baby carrots out of there to thin them out. I think we're going to get when I'm all done pulling that out and thinning them out over, I don't know, next month or two, I think we're going to get a lot of good carrots. Now there's 4 flats of these, so we're going to get a lot of carrots. Now the beets were doing pretty well last time. Now look at the size of those things. Now these are the smallest ones I've got, and they're really good size. Now there's about 20, if you remember, in each of these flats, and there's 100 beets altogether because I've got 4 flats. So, you know, something like 25 or 20 in each one. Now look at that. Look how good size that is. Now these are ready to be taken inside and eaten, but I think I'm going to go ahead and let them mature a little bit more, and then we'll harvest them a little bit later because they will get a lot bigger. Okay, let's go over there and have a look at those brassicas. Now I'm expecting any time now for these to start showing some broccoli heads, but the thing to really notice is look how well they're growing. These on this end are really quite big, and they're quite mature, and they're not ready to have heads yet, but pretty soon. But you can see here there's some that are a little bit smaller and so forth, and these are sitting in the water, and these are growing in just a floating raft. You can see there's the roots on the bottom, and they're just dipped down into the water there. So these do pretty well in a floating raft environment, in an aquaponic environment. And so these are going to do pretty well for us, I think. Now, I believe I mentioned before that all my lettuce has gone to seed. Now here's some of that lettuce. You can see there's some lettuce, there's some seeds up on top. Now also I've got celery that's all gone to seed. And that's kind of a lesson that these are wintered over celery. And they seem to go to seed right away when you let them winter over. Oh, look at that. There's a bee up there, or it's a hornet actually, trying to collect some pollen. Now in here is something that I call water celery, and these are seeds that are planted this year, and they're this year's crop. They're not wintered over. Now you can see they have not gone to seed yet. Now here's a couple that are last year's, and look at the top. They're all gone to seed already. And there's a whole bunch more over here that have gone to seed just as well. Now what we've got here is some more brassicas that I planted, but if we move down here, these are some cucumbers that I planted after the other cucumbers that I'll show you in a minute. But these are regular cucumbers, meaning they're good for pickling. And I planted these because a lady I was watching on YouTube was showing you how to make or how to can pickles so they wouldn't be all mushy. But anyway, as you can see, some of these didn't germinate, and I'm just showing you here that there's just a few that didn't germinate. But of the ones that did germinate, you know, there's a 3, 4, and 5 in a lot of these. So this is going to produce a lot of pickles for me, and hopefully they'll be really good refrigerator pickles, or basically canned pickles. So I'm waiting for these. Now these over here are the pickles I planted a long time ago. I won't call them pickles, they're cucumbers. Now these are the kind that my wife likes, and they're a parthenocopic, I think they call it, meaning they don't need any fertilization. Now we've already picked like 6 or 8 or so off of these, and it seems like every 3 or 4 days we get another batch. So these are really coming out good, and I really like these. Now over here, this is another parthenocopic type cucumber, and I planted this at the same time, and it's growing quite well, and it does seem to be forming cucumbers, but it's acting more like a regular cucumber plant, meaning it's acting like it needs to be pollinized. Now I don't know what's going on with this. It's not supposed to, but don't see any cucumbers on it. You can see there's male and female flowers here, and if I can find one here for you, the female flowers basically have a little cucumber at the base, and the male flowers don't. Now there's one, a male flower. See, it's just a flower, and the idea is the pollen from that flower has to be carried over to one like this, to where it'll pollinate that cucumber and it'll start growing. But this plant was advertised that it doesn't need the pollination. The cucumbers will just form anyway. But I'm kind of looking at it and thinking, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. But still got plenty of time. We'll wait and see. Okay, now let's go out into the chicken house. And remember, we planted potatoes on this side and corn on this side. And remember these 2 potato plants that I thought might be sweet potatoes over here. They're definitely not sweet potatoes. These are some other kind of potato. But they're growing quite well. And you can see the corn is growing quite well too. See that? And now I'm going to get some nice ears of corn if we don't get some crazy weather or something to kill them off. But I doubt that. Now over here on the potatoes, you can see there's another lettuce plant that went to seed. Over here, these potatoes are doing well. And one of the potato plants here, as you can see, has gone yellow and has died out. And I might dig that up here just to see what we've got. So when they do that, that generally means that they're done growing. But I don't know, let's see. Maybe we can take a look and just kind of probe down in there and see what we've got. Let's see. I don't know. Well, I feel a potato. Let's see. There's one down in there. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, there is a potato. Not that big. Yeah. Let's see what we get here. There is another potato. Well, I'll put the camera down here in a minute. I'll just put a pitchfork in here and dig this up and see what we've got, and then I'll let you know. But anyway, they're growing quite well. Well, okay, I took a little pitchfork there and went down there and dug up that potato plant, and this is what I got. That's not a real good harvest, but it's something, so I'm happy with that. But I think we should get a lot more and a lot bigger potatoes off the rest of these. Okay, now let's go over and look at something else we've got in here. And what that is a couple of tomato plants that were volunteer, but they're doing really good. Now I've got them trellised up this string, as you can see, and I think they're going to get clear up to the ceiling before we're done with this. Now, so anyway, that's what we've got over here. Now let's get back over to the main greenhouse and see you there. Well, okay, that's my greenhouse report for this week. And you know, I've always enjoyed gardening, and it takes patience. And but, you know, if you get at it and you just do it, it's, you know, like I was so disappointed last time because these, I think, were just barely popping through the surface, and there was nothing over there with the carrots. And now the carrots are up high, and these are really up high, and I think in another couple of weeks I'll start picking beans off of these. And you know, beans, fresh green beans, are delicious. Fresh carrots, they're delicious too. Fresh beets, oh my goodness, they are delicious. And you know, also fresh cauliflower and things like that. And you can grow these in a greenhouse quite easily, actually. It just takes time and some patience, and I think mostly it takes patience. But anyway, you know, the thing you get out of it is you know where they grew, and you know what chemicals were put on them, and you know what was not done to them. And sometimes you go to the store, you know, I'm not a fanatic about getting pure food and things like that, but even in the produce rack in the store, you know, sometimes you don't know what they've put on them. Like they put stuff on apples to make them shine better. Yeah, maybe that's harmless, maybe not, who knows, but they do put stuff on them. You know, and I'd rather get to where, you know, you pick it out of the garden yourself and you didn't put nothing on it. You know where it came from. And I think that's just generally more healthy. Well, anyway, that's all for this time. So, yeah, happy planting, and keep working away at it, and don't lose patience.